Delighted to say that we are joined by Tom Scargill of the Halifax Courier. Of course, one of the biggest stories in our region in the non-league scene in the last couple of weeks or so is, of course, Adam Lakeland being appointed at FC Halifax Town. Tom, first of all, thanks for joining us, mate. Are we well?
You're welcome. Yeah, very well, thank you.
I mean, it must have been a pretty busy period. Like I thought these, end of seasons were supposed to be relaxing for you guys to have a bit of time to chill out. I'm guessing that's not been the case for you since the end of the season, of course, since Chris Millington departed.
No, I think it's kind of been on tenterhooks a bit, really. It took a couple of weeks for Millington's future to be decided, and then after that, it's kind of right. Okay, who's going to replace him? You're thinking all these names about who could come in, and then the interview process, and obviously Lakeland being announced. So it's just been a bit of a snowball, really, constantly rolling throughout the summer. And it's only really now that he's been appointed that the club can actually fire the starting pistol on. Okay, let's start planning for next season, and they're kind of playing catch up in that respect with a lot of clubs. But yeah, it's been the older you get, the seasons seem to roll into each other anyway. But it particularly feels the case this summer where Millington leaving and Lakeland being appointed. It's kind of all kind of melded into one giant season, really.
So obviously we know the news, Tom, like you said, Adam Lakeland's come in replacing Millington, and Coops has obviously left recently. What are your initial thoughts? You've met Adam and Sam Walker, as you know, previously as a player. How do you see that fit going on at the share?
I can definitely see why he's been appointed. I think he ticks a lot of boxes for Town in that he's got a track record of being involved in promotions and playoff finishes, basically wherever he's been. He'll know the lower leagues quite well, and the divisions below Halifax, which has tended to be quite fruitful for recruitment for Halifax in recent seasons. He's got Sam Walker with him, who'll know Halifax Town as a club. His age is right. It fits the profile of Wild and Millington of being around 40, with Millington a bit older, but is at an age where he can give a lot of energy and commitment to the job. So I think he ticks a lot of boxes. He's used to working with limited budgets, which obviously help at a club like Halifax. And he's been in a situation before at other clubs where he's been in the probably the lower third of the division in terms of budgets, and proven that he can actually get the club into the top third actually in the league, which will be his task at Halifax. So I can see why he's been appointed. He's got a good track record, and he's got to show that now at the highest division he's managed at. He's never managed in this division before, so it's a step up for him. But I think so far he's been kind of welcomed fairly well by the fans. First impressions are good, I think, both ways of the club, from Lakeland and from Lakeland of the fans.
So obviously, sorry, Chris, I'll let you come in a little. But obviously, we're just talking about Lakeland. He's got a proven record of promotions. Most recently as well, did take that jump into full-time football with Kings Lynn, who, were at the wrong end of the National League North table when previously they were flying high, and obviously kind of stopped the decline of that and then pushed them up to the playoffs last season. Do you feel that's a good springboard being used to that full-time football? There's no adjustment from his side and Sam Walker's side that they can go into this job kind of ready to go, even though they are slightly behind the eight ball in terms of recruitment and getting their squad together.
Yeah, definitely. I think he mentioned it in another interview that they went there with no contacts, didn't really know anyone, went in completely cold really, and turned things around middle of the 23-24 season, got them away from relegation, and then the following season they built a team that finished in the playoffs, and I think that work will have really impressed Halifax when they were considering who to appoint. I think they are playing catch up, there's no doubt about that. You look at over the summer, you've been looking at clubs like Altrincham who've done their business really early and rebuilt their squad a bit, and then you're looking over at Halifax and they didn't even have a manager. So it's hard enough for Halifax to recruit a squad on the budget they've got, never mind when they're behind other teams in that process. So he's got no time to lose, but it looks like he's come in with a fair idea of who he wants to recruit already, because they're already speaking to players, they're tabling offers for players. They're not starting from scratch because they've got kind of half a squad already. But there's no doubt they need to add to that, and they're going to replace some key players who left since Millington departed the club. So they've got some big shoes to fill in that respect. It's such an important time of the season, the summer, for recruitment, especially at a club with Halifax's constraints. And it's all going to happen very quickly. He's basically got 8 weeks until the season starts. He's got less than 3 weeks until the first pre-season game. So he's going to have to hit the ground running, get his ideas across very quickly. And it's going to be interesting how he gets on.
In terms of that recruitment, because obviously we saw kind of under Pete Wild into Millington, that kind of pattern almost of you get to the end of the season with some level of success, end up losing the 2 or 3 best players, but there was almost a perfect conveyor belt of replacing those players and it doing well, or hardly seeming to affect things on the pitch. Obviously now with a new man that's coming in from the outside, how likely is it that he's going to get the backing that he will want to basically get the squad together to compete in what will be a very difficult league next season? Because I think there's going to be a lot of sides at National League level that will be eyeing up those playoff places.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of fans will be questioning. It sounds like he's got the budget already from the chairman, and his attitude is, okay, if that's what I'm working with, fair enough. Let's see what we can do with it. I think it's almost a parallel role with Halifax, where one aim is pushing for promotion, pushing for the playoffs, but the other aim is to sustain the club, find and develop good young players and sell them on for profits to feed the other side of things, if you like. So it's a difficult balancing act, running down those 2 roads, if you like, as manager. But the priority at the moment is to get a squad together that is good enough to compete in the division. I think you could argue there's perhaps some players within the current squad who could be developed and moulded to be perhaps sold on in future for a profit, but that will definitely be part of the recruitment process, is identifying players with potential who they can develop and sell on, while also putting together a squad that's competitive enough to achieve for promotion. It's a very difficult juggling act. But I think Lakeland will probably say he's shown he can do that before at other clubs, and he's very, very hungry for the chance to do it at this level now.
You follow Town home and away, obviously, Tom, for the career, and obviously you've seen him at first hand for years and years now. If you were Adam Lakeland right now in his shoes, what would you want to build a squad around? What positions do you feel are critical for Lakeland and Walker to fill as soon as possible?
I think, well, it said to me that 2 areas for improvement really are home form and scoring more goals. And it's an annual problem really that Town unfortunately can't really afford 20 goal season strikers. They had one probably in the last 6 years in Billy Waters, and he got poached after a season. So it's kind of hit and miss. Sometimes you take a gamble on a player who's got the potential to get 20 goals a season. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If you could unearth a gem, that'd be amazing. I think it's the spine of the team really that needs reinforcement, because Jack Evans has left since at the end of last season. He was a centre midfielder. Scott High was alongside him in central midfield. They formed a fantastic partnership. They're both no longer there. Will Smith was a key man at centre-back, and he's out until later this year through injury. Adam Senior, key man at the back, left for Barnet. Ryan Galvin played as part of the back 3 towards the end of last season, also no longer there. So I think you're looking at the spine of the team really, a commanding centre-back, a commanding midfielder, and a 20-goal season striker. So
Sounds like I've got a bit of a job to do there, Tom.
A lot of work to do, yeah.
I reckon that's every National League manager in the division. Is exactly the exact same thing by the sounds of it.
Yeah, better get cracking.
Well, you're going to be a busy boy as well, aren't you? That's in our side. So obviously, like I say, with Lakeland coming in now, what would you say before we kind of reflect on the previous year as well, Tom, which has been successful in its own right? What would you say the expectations are for FC Halifax Town this season? We've seen them reach the playoffs twice in 2 years, kind of pushing on that, knocking on the door, aren't they, of the top 3-4. What would you say is that expectation? Is it the same, or is it just to maybe consolidate the season to Lakeland and build for the season after? What do you think is going to be the case, both from a club expectations but fans as well?
Yeah, I think you can't really tar all fans with the same brush. I think you get a spectrum where some would be more understanding than others, and I think there would be a bit of understanding that it's a new manager coming in. There's a lot of turnover, a lot of change at the club, new pitch as well being installed, not before time. So I think that with that, there would be a bit of slack in that, he needs a bit of time. We can't just expect perhaps him to pick up the baton and it to be seamless and to be in the top 7 from the start of the season and remain there all season. That is probably, I think most fans would say that's unrealistic. But I think they would also say there's nothing to say we couldn't finish in the top 7 by the end of the season. And like you say, the fact that we've finished in the top 7 the last 2 seasons, I think 4 of the last 6 seasons. So is that kind of the established pattern now? Is that enough to suggest, okay, the standard, the par, if you like, is a playoff finish? Maybe some fans would say that. I think some fans would say that's maybe overachieving with the fact that the budget is one of the lowest in the division, and maybe it should be kind of relaxed a bit to be competing for a playoff place rather than guaranteeing as a playoff place. So I think generally there would be some slack in that, let's cut him a bit of slack. Let's understand that there's nuances, there's a lot of change happening, and that's going to take time to settle down. So that might mean that it takes a bit of patience is required, if you like.
How do you kind of look at the rest of the National League? Because as I say, especially before, there's a lot of sides that we look at the playoffs, but when you factor in Sutton United, for example, seems to be recruiting fairly well. Yeovil, excuse me, of course, have new Dubai-based owners, so they'll be expected to be improving on last season. How do you go to assess Town, both in terms of club stature, the squad, obviously the job that Hamlet has done, and the rest of the National League itself?
Yeah, it's just incredibly competitive. You look at Southend, who lost the playoff final; they'll be right up there. Forest Green, they've got a massive budget. Carlisle and York are also the 2 favourites for very good reason. So I think if Halifax do make the playoffs again, it would be a fantastic achievement. Like the other times they've done it were fantastic achievements. What Halifax do have is continuity and stability. I think they're the big ticks in their boxes, really. Obviously, changing manager is a threat to that continuity, and Lakeland has said he wants to maintain as much continuity as possible because I think he sees that it is a possible disruption to the club's stability. But I think the way that the club is run and operated will stay the same under Lakeland, so that does provide a measure of continuity. I think York will be better for having had a season of the way that they are run now under their belts. Altrincham, as I say, they've done their business really early and they look like they're getting a good squad together. Rochdale in the playoffs last season, no reason why they can't do that again. You can go on and on and on. It is going to be a massive challenge for Halifax to get in the playoffs again. There's no reason why they can't do it, but I mean, something else that flashes up in the back of my mind as well, Chris, is what an argument for 3 up, 3 down as well. It's so long overdue. There's not a fan or anyone connected with non-league who wouldn't argue with it, but every season that goes by now, it's just crazy that there's such a bottleneck at the top of non-league where only 2 clubs go up. It's League 3 in all but name, and the fact that there isn't 3 up, 2 down, I think the longer it goes on, the more ridiculous it is, really.
Yeah, it's a matter, especially when you consider that no promoted or newly promoted National League side into League 2 has ever been relegated at the end of the first season. In the
Yeah,
entire history since the start of the Vauxhall Conference back in, 87, 88? So you're spot on with that. I think that's going to be... obviously, we saw the statement, I think it was York, that they put out, ironically, within a few days of them losing in the playoffs, which kind of made things look a little bit sour almost. But
yeah.
do you think this kind of League 3, this kind of 3 up, 3 down argument is going to get stronger? The problem is, as it always seems to come back to, is you've got to rely on League 2 clubs agreeing to vote that in, and that's just turkeys voting for Christmas, potentially.
Yeah, I think it built some momentum, didn't it, over the summer and over this year at different points, but that momentum always then seems to die away and other things get on the agenda and whatever else. It's up to the National League and interested parties to keep that momentum going. I do think it's in the interests of League 2 clubs as well, in a way, because if they do go down, if they then need 3 promotion spots, they're giving themselves a better chance of going up. But that argument can be flipped on its head, and why would they vote for an extra place to be relegated? So I'd love to see it, but like you say, it's the old turkeys voting for Christmas scenario, isn't it? So maybe it needs another authority above the fray to come in and kind of implement it independently. Whether that would be possible, I don't know, but it just seems to go round and round and round without any resolution.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't know. I think it might come in at some point, but that might be me just wishful thinking because football changes so often, doesn't it? I think as well, Tom, that it's probably ignorant to ignore the fact of what Chris Millington and Andy Cooper did at Halifax Town as well during their spell. Like you said, probably perform near miracles of what they've done, what they've achieved with a conveyor belt of players they've worked with to establish a club in the National League as well. I'd interest obviously get your thoughts, and I might open it up to Chris as well, having seen a lot of National League fixtures and that expectation of playing Halifax. What did they look like under Millington? But to kick off with you, Tom, you dealt with him personally, and professionally as well. Just to give your thoughts on their time in a dugout at the Share.
Yeah, 100%. And the 3 years under Pete before as well, he was an integral part of that. Pete was the first to recognise the part that Millington played in his 3 years there, and Millington arguably took it on further, certainly at least maintained the standards that were set under Wild. Obviously an FA Trophy win and 2 playoff finishes. I think he would argue he probably wrung as much as he possibly could out of the club and out of the squads he had at his disposal. They always fell short in the playoffs, be it through fatigue or injuries or whatever else, because it takes so much for Halifax to get in the playoffs because of the constraints, because of the challenges they face. They have to give absolutely everything to get in the playoffs, that usually there's nothing left when they get in there. But yeah, I mean, fantastic people to deal with from my point of view. Really cared, really passionate about the club, gave absolutely everything, worked 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. And, had their critics who said that the football wasn't entertaining enough, they didn't score enough goals. But I think you could argue back with the fact, going back again to Halifax not being able to afford 20-goal season strikers. So the alternative is you start from the back, and what's perhaps easier to do is build a solid foundation, organise a team that's defensively stable and difficult to beat, and then you don't have to score as many goals to win games and get points. That's maybe simplifying it a bit, but by and large, that was perhaps the approach. And that might be something that Lakeland follows suit with as well. And it does make sense. Obviously, everyone would love to win games 5-4 and score loads of goals. But if you can't afford, Regan Linney's or whatever else, Ollie Pearce's, what's your alternative is to look at things a bit differently. Yes, there was scope for more entertainment, more goals, more shots on target. There's no doubt it was head scratching and eye-clawing at stages watching them, but you can't argue with the end result of a Wembley win and 2 playoff finishes, and hopefully he gets a shot somewhere else. Pete well deserved his chance at the end of his time at Halifax, and it's no different to Chris and Andy, and it'd be great to see them get a chance in the Football League.
I'm going to ask from a purely kind of fans way of looking at it, because it's all hypothetical, but do you think that with the right backing and budgets, Millington could have got that side into League Two?
I think so, and like with Pete as well at different points. In his last season, they were going great guns, needed reinforcements. Looking back, maybe didn't get the quality that they needed just to give that extra push, and ended up kind of slumping out of the playoffs. And I think at least one of the seasons under Millington, you could argue at different times they needed just that extra push of one or two really quality reinforcements mid-season, towards the end of the season. Had they got that, yeah, I think they could have really been a serious contender. Certainly last season, if they'd have kept everyone fit, not even anything to do with extra recruitment, if they'd have kept everyone fit, there's no doubt they'd have had a serious chance. So luck comes down to it as well, which Halifax don't really seem to have much of, especially when it comes to cup runs. But yeah, I think there was potential there over the last 6 seasons under both Pete and Chris that we could have got promoted, which does offer hope that it can still be done, but it needs a lot of things to go right at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. One final question, then we can't kind of get you on and not talk about the transfer window and the summer transfers and the rumour mill. Is there anything that's kind of caught your eye that obviously with Alan Lau taking the job, are you hearing any names mentioned, and how soon are you hoping that you'll be able to get busy with articles on new signings and 25 goal a season strikers?
Well, he's not ruled out going back to Kings Lynn for players, and there's a midfielder called Cody Johnson who's apparently ripped it up a bit in the National League North last season. So I think a few fans are. Yes, I think so.
Yeah, he came to Rochdale briefly for a short loan spell. It didn't quite work out, but I heard they'd done quite well at Kings Lane.
So I think a few fans are putting 2 and 2 together and hoping they've got 4 with that. There might be 1 or 2 others from Kings Lynn that end up at the Shea. I mean, if they could get Scott High back, who is without a club at the moment, I think from what I understand, that'd be a fantastic signing. But again, won't be surprised to see him in League Two. I don't know. It's a bit. Sometimes the managers are left field, and sometimes the players are left field as well with Halifax. So we'll have to wait and see. But they certainly need to get the skates on. They're back in pre-season training at the end of the month, so they've basically got a week and a half, I think, to get some signings through the door, and then it's the first friendly on July the 5th, so they've got no time to lose. There's not they're covered for goalkeepers, but other than that, there's not really an area of the squad that doesn't need strengthening. So hopefully they get plenty of players through the door soon.
Yeah, in that pre-season friendly, I think is it Bradford Park Avenue, that first friendly? We'll be seeing Sam Johnson up front at this, right?
Yeah, it's nice that Sam's sticking around. He'll reach 10 years at the club, I think, during the next season, which is absolutely incredible. Very rare in this day and age that you get that kind of loyalty from any players. Fantastic to see him sticking around. What a legend.
Absolutely. Excellent, Tom. Thanks for taking the time out of your morning to come on and join us here on the West Yorkshire Football Show, mate. We'll look forward to catching up with you again soon.
No worries.